Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome once again. This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame. It's presented by Krause Health, and we're with you live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page, live on YouTube and on Twitter, or perhaps you're watching sometime in the future. This post archives, of course, on YouTube, on all our social media channels. We always embed it in my recap on syracuse.com as well. But why watch it later when you can watch it live and be a part of the fun here? As Syracuse has really its best performance of the season, I think, if not one of its best performances of the season in a game that matters. You know, there were some non-conference games. Syracuse certainly took care of business here. Got a much-needed quality win, a quad 2 win for Syracuse as they beat Virginia Tech 82-72 at the JMA Wireless Dome. Tonight, Joe Girard leads all scorers with 24 points. All told, Syracuse had 5 scorers in double figures. Malik Brown continues to be impressive for Syracuse. His first double-double, 11 points and 12 rebounds on the night. And here come the comments from you. As Ben says, having Malik Brown at the 4 is a game changer. Great hands, athletic, string rebounder. Hopefully he's earned the 4 spot. Yeah, Benny Williams did a return after being out of the lineup against Virginia with a sickness. But Malik Brown is just earning more and more opportunities there. As Jim notes, he dominated the board. Syracuse had a terrific performance on the boards. Now, it ended up, we'll go through the numbers here shortly. It ended up evening out, but Syracuse dominated the boards for most of this game. Hello to you, Iris. It says, good evening to me and good evening to you. Put it in the win column. What a game from Malik. JG3 shot the ball very well. And look, Joe Girard has just been on a steady stream of scoring performances. After, he had a string of 3 games where he combined for 9 points. He's been in double figures ever since then. He's been one of the top 7-8 scorers in the ACC since then and has led this team as a senior. Needs to. Tawan just loving it. Says yes. Little hand clap there. Great team win. As Jimmy says, Tony says actually rebounded this game. Michelle checking in all the way from Los Angeles. Hello. Always love to hear where you guys are watching from. Marty says they were flying high out there today. Lori says loves the defense. And like we said, we're going to go over the numbers here, but you live and you die by the 3 when you play Syracuse. And a lot of teams have been successful shooting the 3, not Virginia Tech tonight. They were putrid from beyond the arc. Syracuse actually had a great balance between shooting 3s. They were 8 of 16. And we mentioned the rebounding, but also just points in the paint. Jesse Edwards bounces back. We mentioned the great game from Malik Brown. And it's really one of the better performances from Syracuse all year. As Iris notes, Jesse seemed more like the Jesse we saw earlier in the season. Skylar likes the way that Judah Mintz plays, always has that motor, always playing well. Dan says, without a doubt, the best performance of the year. Moved the ball, covered the wings, had active hands. Nice job by the Orange. As Lori notes from Sacramento, loving the confidence in the play. And David notes, can JG3 come back next year due to COVID rules? I believe he does have an extra year of eligibility. On that, I don't think he's going to end up using it. We shall see. Paul says, I'll take a poor free throw shooting game from Joe Girard any day if Syracuse can get a double-digit win and Joe can get 24. Yeah, he was kind of weird from the free throw line. He's obviously one of Syracuse's more dependent free throw shooters. Syracuse, we'll go over the numbers here shortly. That's really like the one pick you can knit from this is that they did not shoot well from the free throw line. There was something up with that rim that they were shooting on in the second half. Jesse Edwards missed a couple of bunnies, some free throws that didn't go in for Joe Girard. Just kind of a weird circumstance there. Tom watching all the way from the Philippines where it is 10:14 Thursday morning. How about that, Tom? We love it. The beauty and magic of the internet, right? Like Michelle here. Fire Jim. Oh, wait, they won. So hold off on that. Yes, there you go. Let's look at some stats from this one. You guys keep going at it in the comments here. I'll jump back in and highlight some more momentarily, but let's look at how things played out statistically here. Syracuse shot 51% in this game, 30 of 59. They were 8 of 16 from three-point range. That's 50%. Different story for Virginia Tech, who shot 43%, 3 of 19 from distance. Poor performance there. They did not have Hunter Couture back in the lineup tonight. It was expected he would be back, coming back from an elbow injury. And, the where you break from the norm here is Virginia Tech had lost 4 in a row coming in, 5 total coming in. They now have 6 losses. Their prior 5 losses, none were more by 5 points. And Syracuse comes out with a 10-point win and led by much more than that in the second half of this game. We mentioned the free throws. Syracuse was 14 of 22 at the line. That's 63%. Kind of weird there. Virginia Tech, 11 of 14. That's 78%. Syracuse out-rebounded Virginia Tech 37 to 36. Now that's where it ended up overall. You look at the halftime number, Syracuse was up 18 to 13, and at one point was up like 28-17 on the boards. Virginia Tech just managed to scrape away a few there, and they're a very good rebounding team, so that's not a surprise. But for Syracuse to out-rebound a team is significant. Now, they've done it 2 games in a row. They did it against Virginia, where it didn't make quite the difference it needed to. It certainly did in this game tonight, Malik Brown being a prime example of that. So let's look at how things shook out individually for Syracuse. Joe Girard, 10 of 20 overall, 3 of 7. He was 1 of 4 at the free throw line, which again is strange for him. He had 24 points to lead the way. Jesse Edwards bounces back with 13 and 9, just 1 point away from his 8th double-double of the season. He only had 4 points against Virginia. He had 4 and 10 in this game. Jesse, much more active. He missed a couple bunnies in the second half. He easily could have had 17, 18 points in this game. Judah Mintz, 12 points on the night, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, just 2 turnovers for Judah. Malik Brown, we mentioned, 11 points, 12 rebounds. Look, I think he's earning his way into the lineup. I think he's a better option than Benny Williams right now. Yeah, Jim Boeheim said that, Benny has been having great practices. He had a couple of good practices leading into this one. He had a stomach bug. They kept him out of the Virginia game. Malik Brown just does everything that Benny Williams doesn't. He is aggressive. He's physical. He's controlled around the basket. He'll mix it up inside. He's not afraid to dig in there. I think Benny's just playing his way out of the lineup. I still think Benny has a role on this team, but as a starter, as somebody with significant minutes, he only played, 8 minutes tonight. I don't know. I mean, Malik's on a roll right now, and he's a freshman. Benny's essentially a freshman based on how much he played last year. We got ourselves a really interesting competition going on there. Justin Taylor, I think, had a great game off the bench. 10 points for him, hit a couple of threes. Symir Torrance gave Syracuse a real spark at the end of the first half. He ends up on the night with 5 points in 8 minutes, couple of assists, pushed the pace, ran the offense. Really like that they got him integrated back out there. I mean, Judah and Joe have been playing well enough that they don't necessarily need Symir Torrance, but I'm glad he got some run out there tonight because they are going to need that guy at some point here. Shout out to my guy, Brian. Love the Z89 logo there. Malik with 12 rebounds. You got to keep him in, coach. Jim saying that Brown is smoother than Benny. Dale notes 26 points off the bench overall. There's our guy, Mike from El Paso. Look, that's the reality of college sports today, right? If you got a guy who's starting to trail back a little bit, you start to speculate and wonder about the transfer portal, as we've seen in the football world this week, right? Blake wondering if Benny's still ill from the last game. Look, anybody that's had a stomach bug or has a sickness like that, it takes a lot out of you. It takes a couple days to build back your stamina, get hydrated again. But, Jerry McNamara said earlier today on ESPN in Syracuse that Benny had a couple good practices. Jim Boeheim noting the same thing in a pregame interview. So, we'll see. But look, Benny's just been inconsistent, and Benny there's a role for Benny I want to emphasize on this team. But the way Malik is able to, the biggest thing is somebody's got to take pressure off Jesse Edwards in the paint. And Virginia Tech was a very good player in the paint. Justin Mutz had a triple-double against Syracuse last year. Let's see where he ended up tonight. He was looking like he was going to get things going early in the game and ends up, he had 21 points, 4 rebounds. So he was their primary scorer and, had a great game in this one. Basile had 26 points in this game. So he ended up leading all scorers and had a much better second half to get there. So they had a couple of big scores, but 10 points from Padula, 10 points from Kidd. But, for Mutz, the challenge was who on Syracuse could counter what he does in the paint. And in this case, you had 2 guys that did it, both Jesse Edwards and Malik Brown. The and in that category has been hard to find at the forward position. It's not coming from Chris Bell, and it's not coming from Benny Williams. So I think as long as Malik Brown's got the hot hand, you really got to keep rolling him and giving him the minutes, and he's certainly earning it there. As Jeff notes, Couture being out really hit Virginia Tech. Good job by Syracuse to take advantage. Couture's a great three-point shooter. He's a 40% three-point shooter, so that definitely affected things for them. And remember, Syracuse gets Virginia Tech again at the end of the month. Just like in this case, they get Virginia and Virginia Tech back-to-back at the end of the month. So, yeah, Iris brings up Torrance's three. That three-pointer. He got a shooter's roll on that one, Iris. That was put one up to beat the shot clock and got a little shooter's roll on that, but you'll take it, right? Al noting a nice problem here. A young SU team needs to learn how to play with a big lead, something they haven't really had the opportunity to do that. Anthony thinks Syracuse needs at least 3 quad one wins to make the dance. No question about it, Anthony, because they did not pick up any in non-conference play. So, look, Notre Dame is one of those don't slip on a banana peel kind of games coming up for Syracuse. They're 174 in the net ranking the last time I checked today. Then you get Miami after that, which is a top 30 team in the net ranking. Quad one game for Syracuse for sure. Opportunity for sure. So they need at least 3 or 4 of those. They got a quad 2 win tonight with this game against Virginia Tech. Got to keep building that resume. And, as noted in the comments momentarily ago, look, when a team doesn't have their best player or one of their best players, you just got to take advantage of that, right? And without Hunter Couture, they go 3 of 19 from 3-point range. Virginia Tech has lost 5 in a row. That team's going nowhere. I mean, Virginia Tech actually has the second longest consecutive NCAA tournament appearance streak in the ACC. They've made it, I think, 5 times in a row, and they'll bounce back. That team's good. Tonight, they just got, a Syracuse team that was hot, that was consistent, that was rebounding, balanced out the 3-point shooting with the paint scoring as well. Girard dropping 24. Jesse getting back in action, Malik with a double-double, but that's a good Virginia Tech team that I still think at the end of the road is, at the very least, going to be right in the conversation for the NCAA tournament. Mike loves the double-double from Malik Brown, who's just really impressing game by game here. He's, look, there's certain things you can't teach, and he's got a motor. That kid's got a motor. Judah Mintz has a motor. You want guys out there that are busting their tails and doing what they need to do. Not that Chris Bell and Benny Williams don't play hard, but they just don't have the numbers rebounding-wise and, the grit points, if you will, that you need at that position. Malik Brown, had a couple of putbacks tonight. He's always in the right place. He's just always in the right place. And for a freshman, he's just going to keep proving Jim Boeheim wrong in the sense that Jim Boeheim will always err on the side of caution with freshmen. They're not there. They've got to learn, et cetera, et cetera. Well, look, when the lights are shining, Malik Brown's playing better, at least at this point. Still got a ways to go here in ACC play, but certainly impressive for him. Al noting, don't discount Symir. He's got the best plus-minus on the team. Judah's still out of control at times. He was sloppy again at the end of tonight. Yeah, but Judah makes up for it in so many other ways. We mentioned the motor. We mentioned the vision, the aggressiveness. He had a great drive to the basket tonight, one-handed drive, held onto it, was defended, and just kind of, bowled his way up to the basket. I like that in his game. He's got that dog in him, as the kids like to say. And Judah Mintz just continues to impress me game by game. And Anthony notes, good win. Didn't see the game, but I'm glad that Brown got more minutes. Definitely productive when Jim plays him. Back to our guy, Mike, who says, I think Boeheim has backed off and given Benny some space, and it still hasn't happened yet. Some guys just can't make the adjustment to the next level. Julie notes, really glad Virginia Tech were not going in the second half. Yeah, they had some open shots and just clunking it. 3 of 19 overall, just never a threat in this game. Syracuse had 43-37 lead at halftime, built that up to about 20 points. Virginia Tech made a 10-0 run and cut it down to about 10. The final score ended up being by 10 points, but, Virginia Tech just didn't have it tonight. And with your Syracuse, you got to take it. Al says Joe played his best perimeter D ever. Look, Syracuse overall was closing down on shooters. Without Couture, Virginia Tech had its options limited there. You'll take it because we haven't even mentioned this just about 15 minutes into the show. The dreaded slow start did not happen tonight. Syracuse overcame one of its biggest bugaboos, one of the things that's really held them back, not only in ACC play, but really all year, having to constantly climb out of these holes. Didn't happen tonight. They maintained. They were right there. Even when they trailed in the early part of the game, they were within striking distance. They were getting rebounds. They were valuing possessions. And like we said, I think this is the best game they played all year and a good time to do it because they really need a quality win in the books, and they got it. David says, looks like Boeheim's using the bench a little bit more than previous years. Are there stats for this? I'd have to point at some stats there. Now, it depends on how long you get in, right? So let's look at it tonight, for example. So Syracuse plays, they get 9 guys in there. Hema plays 5. Bell plays 9. He's a starter. Benny plays 8. So you had Gerard play 38. Edwards play 35. Mintz play 35. Brown play 34. Taylor play 29. So you still had your core guys play a bulk of minutes, and some other guys kind of fill in. But to go down the bench that far is big. And Syracuse certainly can do it more. They need to do it more at times. You didn't see John Bull get into this game. That would have been the 10th name on the list, but it does feel that way. I'm curious too, David. I'd like to see some numbers on that myself, but it depends on how many minutes that 10th and 11th guy gets. It's still, in some ways, the typical Jim Boeheim rotation, but certainly we're seeing more bodies out there and more names contributing. And Malik Brown, who we can keep circling back to, just is going to continue to get minutes. He might not start, but it doesn't matter who starts for Jim Boeheim. It matters who's in the game, when it matters, who gets the bulk of the minutes at the end of the night. And Malik Brown was a prime example of that tonight. Anthony thinks 2-2, Miami, UNC, Duke, Virginia, take care of business and split those 4. Here's the thing with that, Anthony. There is no team in the ACC that has pulled away from the pack. Now, as we go down the road here, maybe Miami starts to pull away. That would be a huge win for Syracuse coming up on Monday if they could get it. Duke's barely in the rankings. They're 24th in the country. Virginia, who Syracuse has another opportunity against, they're a top 15 team. They're not easy, but remember, you get them at home next time around, right? North Carolina, who I watched that North Carolina-Virginia game last night, and that went back and forth, and Carolina has fallen off the map. You know what's interesting, guys, is there's a lot of blue bloods, quite literally, in the sense of Kentucky, but Kentucky, North Carolina, Indiana, Duke's barely hanging in terms of the rankings. Michigan State's out of the rankings. There's a lot of really good teams with really good coaches, John Calipari, Tom Izzo, and company, that are either out of the rankings or not where they need to be. In the ACC, it kind of applies to that league. There's no secretary in this league. There's nobody that's pulled away that when Syracuse plays, you say no way, no how. At least that's right now. And to get a bulk of those teams in your January schedule, so you still got Miami, you still got another game against Virginia Tech, which will be a quad 1 game at this point at Virginia Tech, and you got Virginia coming in to the Dome, which I still think would be a quad 1 win at this point. So there's opportunities there. Doors certainly got some knocks on it. I hear you knocking, but can you come in? I guess is the question you got to ask yourself. As we continue to go through your comments here, Kevin says Judah's confidence cannot be taught. That is a huge point, and that's what I really, really like about Judah's game. You can't teach that. He's just aggressive in a good way. He learns from his mistakes. He's starting to figure out what a point guard in the ACC has to do. You know, Virginia and Virginia Tech, you got to be smart against those teams. You can't turn the ball over. You can't force it. He had a couple of mistakes in the second half, which you'd expect from a freshman, but he's not afraid of anybody. And that's the thing that I really like. Michelle asked a good question, good point. He did get a little banged up. Chris Bell kind of went into those seats that are right there on the court, and he nicked up his leg a little bit. It looks like he twisted his ankle slightly as well. I have not seen Jim Boeheim's press conference. I don't know if he updated that or not, but he did have a little bit of a situation there. So we'll keep an eye on that going forward. Back to Iris says, go back, watch the tape. Every time, with the exception of transition points, someone puts a shot up, Brown is right there for the putback. That kid will continue to grow and develop and will be something special. As they once said in the great movie Coming to America, he ain't lying about that statement right there. Not lying about that. Syracuse, Anthony says here, will be 5th in the ACC. What a surprise. Can't wait for the ACC tournament. I believe since the first year they've been in the league, someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'm right on this. Since their first year in the ACC, which was the 2013-14 season, we're coming up on 10 years on that, they have not finished higher than 6th in the league. Take that for what it's worth at this point, right? Let's see here. Diane says, I'm just not impressed with Benny at this point. Ben says Benny visibly upset he didn't start the second half or didn't play much. How can you put him in there with the way that Malik Brown's playing? He's got to be a team guy in that situation, right? Jeff noting Benny's been given every opportunity at a certain point. Right now, you are what you are. Steven loves this. Great win. Let's go get the Irish and sweep it. Yeah, that's already the second game against Notre Dame coming up on Saturday. Remember, Syracuse went there and squeezed out a 1-point win over the Irish in South Bend in December. David thinks the ACC doesn't have the same juice as it did 10 years ago. Hard to argue with that. It really is, but you still had North Carolina and Duke in the Final Four last year. You still have the ACC have a terrific performance in the NCAA tournament last year. All the talk was about the Big Ten, but the ACC kicked some butt in the NCAA tournament when it matters most last year for what it's worth. And it's not just that the ACC doesn't have as much juice, David. I just think there's more parity in college basketball. I brought it up earlier. Look at the Blue Bloods that aren't ranked. Houston's the number one team in the country. There's a good mix of teams that you recognize and should be in the rankings, but like Alabama and Tennessee are top 5 teams. UConn's back. Providence is back there in the top 10, right? It's just, there's talent. And this is why people like Jim Boeheim, I don't agree with this, but this is why people like Jim Boeheim are advocating for an expansion of the tournament, because the talent pool has gone other places, not just to those traditional Power 5 schools, if you will. It's a little more in college basketball. It's more like the Power 7, but one way or the other, the ACC has lost a little bit of its shine. I see what you're saying there, but still, in the tournament last year, when it matters most, they really came to play. Paul says, I don't mind if Malik doesn't start as long as he gets starters minutes. Remember, Dion Waiters never started for Syracuse. That's the example, Paul. That's the one you go back to every time. Dion Waiters never started a game at Syracuse, but he averaged about 29 minutes a game, which is starters minutes. It's not if you start and how you start. It's how you play and when you play, right? That's what matters with Syracuse. Jim always kind of hits the reset button and will put his starting 5 back in there. He rarely changes the starting 5. The only reason he's changed the starting 5 this year is when Benny was sick or if there's an illness or an academic situation, right? So I get it, but he's quick to pull the guys out that aren't being effective and give the right players starters minutes. I mean, Justin Taylor played starters minutes in this game because he earned it, and he played well and hit some key threes. And I think the defense is a lot better tonight than it has been. It still needs a lot of improvement if this team's going to wade its way through the ACC, get some conference wins, and be in the conversation for the tournament. It's got to be a lot better. You got to do what you did tonight. They just started better. They got on the shooters a lot better, moved on defense, moved the ball better. I didn't note it earlier. What were Syracuse's assist numbers tonight? Let's take a look at that. So the Orange assisted on 15 of 30 buckets tonight, if I'm reading that right. Yep. And Virginia Tech assisted on 19 of 29. Right. The other night, Jim Boeheim said that it wasn't a big deal that Virginia assisted on 22 of 23 baskets because, look, against the zone, quick pass, shot, make, that's an assist, right? You start hitting. That's the difference, though. Virginia Tech didn't make their threes. Virginia did the other night. Totally get that. But if you assist on 22 of 23 buckets, I don't care what the notion is. That's impressive. That's the difference tonight. Virginia Tech doesn't make their threes. 19 of 29 buckets assisted. Big difference there because Syracuse moved the ball a lot better. Skylar thinks Joe should stay another year because he can go pro at this point. Michelle says, thank goodness Teddy Valentine wasn't a factor tonight. That is a great point because anytime Teddy TV's in the building, and Teddy TV Teddy, as Doug notes here, has done enough Syracuse games lately. I think he's got an apartment in Armory Square at this point. Never heard his name. Never heard his name. And knock on wood for that, right? Knock on wood for that. Always a blessing. Thank you. Thank you, Teddy, for essentially taking the night off. Mike says, also one non-stat. We got some good bounces for once. Yeah, something out of the box score there. Anthony notes Jim Boeheim coached this one, stopped the threes early and stopped it early, in the middle, and at the end, as it never got going for Virginia Tech in that department for sure. Okay, what do you say we end there for tonight, friends? Programming note, there will not be Orange Weekly tomorrow as scheduled. We usually have Orange Weekly on these same channels, Thursdays at noon. We will not have Orange Weekly tomorrow, unfortunately. Got a scheduling conflict, so we'll have to push that back till next week. But we will be back Saturday night, because Saturday night's all right for fighting. And everybody was kung fu fighting and all those songs about Saturday night and dancing and doing post-game shows, right? We'll be back Saturday night. It's a 7 o'clock tip between Syracuse and Notre Dame. So we'll be here just like tonight, about 9 o'clock or so, as soon as the game's over. Come on back. Hang. Talk some sports with us. We'll be back to discuss Syracuse and Notre Dame. But for tonight, the Orange take down Virginia Tech 82-72. They were now 11-6 on the season, 4-2 in ACC play after what was, I think, their best performance of the year and your best performance of the year. Thanks, as always, friends, for coming by and being a part of Syracuse basketball postgame here, presented by Krause Health. And I thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your week, friends. We'll talk to you again on Saturday night.